Hookup. She gave him her heart. He tore it apart. Now she'll make sure he pays, piece by piece. When Emma Pierce discovers her husband's betrayal, she doesn't cry. She doesn't beg. She stays and builds a silent revenge that will poison his perfect life from the inside out. But how far will she go before she destroys herself too? Heartbroken wife makes husband's life hell, a chilling tale of love turned poison, secrets exposed, and a woman's ruthless fight to reclaim her power. The perfect picture. Emma Pierce once believed her marriage was unbreakable, the kind of love story people envied. For 10 years, she had been the loyal wife of Daniel Pierce, a charming, successful architect known for his magnetic smile and disarming lies. Together, they built a life that sparkled on the outside, a spacious house in the suburbs, dinner parties with laughter echoing through their marble halls, and framed photographs of vacations where they posed like the perfect couple. But behind the closed doors of their seemingly perfect life, a secret festered like an untreated wound. Emma woke up one rainy Wednesday morning with a gnawing sense of dread she couldn't explain. She lay in bed, watching Daniel tie his silk tie in front of the mirror. He caught her staring through the reflection and flashed his familiar grin. "Big day today," he said, adjusting his cufflinks. "I'll be home late. Don't wait up." Emma forced a smile. She had heard "don't wait up" far too many times lately. "Big project?" she asked, voice trembling slightly. Daniel nodded briskly. "You know how it is. Clients, deadlines. The usual." He leaned down, pressed a kiss on her forehead, and grabbed his coat. The door closed softly behind him. Emma lay still, staring at the ceiling, hearing only the rain tapping at the windows and her own heartbeat drumming in her ears. Something wasn't right. And today, she decided she would find out what it was. The truth unveiled. Emma spent the morning pacing the living room, sipping cold coffee she never finished. She replayed every conversation, every suspicious late night, every vague excuse. She was not the naive 22-year-old bride anymore. She was 32, and heartbreak had made her sharper. She grabbed her phone, dialed Marissa, her childhood best friend, and an expert in digging up secrets. Within an hour, Marissa was at her doorstep, soaked from the rain but armed with her usual tenacity. "You look like you haven't slept," Marissa said, hugging her tight. "I need your help," Emma whispered. They sat at the dining table, the same table where Emma had once laid out candlelit dinners for Daniel, hoping he'd come home on time. She told Marissa everything: the late nights, the perfume that wasn't hers, the suspicious credit card charges for hotel bars in parts of town Daniel never mentioned. "I want the truth," Emma said. "No matter how ugly." Marissa's eyes glinted. "Then let's catch this bastard." They devised a plan. Marissa knew a private investigator who owed her a favor. Within hours, they had hired someone to follow Daniel. Emma felt a strange mix of dread and relief. For the first time in months, she felt alive. The first crack. 2 days later, Emma sat in her parked car outside Daniel's office building. She watched him through the windshield as he stepped out, laughing, his hand resting lightly on the lower back of a woman Emma had never seen before, young, blonde, dressed like she stepped out of a glossy magazine. They didn't look like colleagues. Emma's chest tightened. She took photos with trembling hands. Each click of the shutter felt like a dagger twisting deeper into her ribs. When Daniel leaned in and kissed the woman on the temple before they got into his car, Emma let out a sound that was half gasp, half SOB. When he drove away, Emma sat frozen, the rain now a storm outside her car. She didn't cry, not really. Something inside her hardened instead. She thought she'd be broken, but all she felt was a rising tide of rage. Daniel Pierce had broken their vows. He had ripped their life apart. And if he thought he could walk away unscathed, he had no idea who he was dealing with. The plan. Emma didn't confront Daniel that night. When he got home, smelling faintly of expensive whiskey and cheap perfume, she greeted him with a smile. "Long day?" she asked sweetly. Daniel barely looked at her. "Yeah, exhausted." Going to bed, she watched him climb the stairs and close the bedroom door. She stood there in the dark hallway, her mind racing. There would be no dramatic screaming match. No begging. No tears. If Daniel thought he could humiliate her, he was wrong. She wouldn't leave him, not yet. She would stay right here in this house, wearing the mask of the perfect wife. And while she did, she would make his life a living hell. The first strike. Emma's revenge began small, subtle enough to slip under Daniel's radar, but sharp enough to draw blood. She cancelled his golf club membership and donated the annual fee to a women's shelter under his name. She accidentally swapped his presentation files before a big meeting, costing him a crucial contract. When he asked where his favorite suit was, she claimed the dry cleaner lost it. Every little inconvenience made him snap at her. But Emma just smiled, played dumb, and waited. She installed a tiny hidden camera in his home office, collecting proof of shady deals and under-the-table payments. She copied his emails and phone records, building a dossier of his sins that stretched far beyond infidelity. Marissa called it insane. Emma called it justice. The confession. One night, Emma waited for Daniel to come home. She sat in the living room with a glass of wine, the folder of evidence spread across the coffee table. When Daniel finally stumbled in, reeking of his mistress, Emma gestured for him to sit. "What's this?" he asked, slurring slightly. "Sit, Daniel." Something in her tone made him obey. Emma poured him a glass of wine and pushed the folder toward him. "These are copies." "The originals are safe," she said calmly. "Affairs, fraud, tax evasion. Should I go on?" Daniel's face turned ashen. He reached for the folder with trembling hands. "Emma, I know about her," Emma cut in. "And I know about everything else. Now, here's what's going to happen." She leaned forward, eyes locked on his. "You're going to keep living in this house. You're going to smile at our neighbors, hold my hand at parties, and pretend this marriage is perfect. And every day you do, you'll wonder what I'm going to do next." Daniel's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. "If you try to leave, I send this to the IRS, your clients, your mistress's husband. Yes, she's married too, and every business partner you have." She sipped her wine, savoring the taste of power. "If you think I'm bluffing, test me. The game begins." Daniel slept in the guest room that night. Emma heard him sobbing once through the thin walls, but she felt nothing. No pity. No regret. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling. This was just the beginning. She would make him dread coming home. She would make him question every shadow, every closed door, every half smile. She would make him live in the same prison he built for her, only hers had no locked doors, just invisible chains forged by betrayal. And when she was done with him, when there was nothing left of the man who once made her believe in fairy tales, she would decide if she'd destroy him completely or let him live forever with the ashes of what he used to be. Either way, Daniel Pierce's life would never be the same. A smile for the neighbors. A week after the confrontation, the Pierces threw their annual summer garden party, an event their suburban neighborhood looked forward to every year. Fairy lights twinkled in the backyard, jazz music drifted from hidden speakers, and trays of champagne flutes glistened in the warm dusk. To the outside world, they were the same enviable couple, Daniel, the charming host with an easy laugh, and Emma, his graceful wife in a white silk dress that floated like a ghost around her ankles. They mingled among their friends and colleagues, smiling for photos and accepting compliments about their perfect marriage. But beneath Daniel's forced grin, his eyes flicked nervously to Emma every few minutes, as if she might pull the pin on a grenade at any second. Emma clinked her glass with his when someone toasted to 10 years of true love. Cheers, darling, she said sweetly, her fingers brushing the back of his hand, the same hand that trembled when he thought no one was looking. Inside her head, she was already imagining what she'd do next. The mistress learns the truth. Emma didn't stop at tormenting Daniel in private. She needed him to feel the pressure from every direction, home, work, and his dirty little secret. Her investigator dug up everything about the mistress. Her name was Leela Carter. 26. Newly married to a rising tech entrepreneur who believed she spent her days working late at a PR firm. Emma tracked down Leela's husband, Mason, and sent him an anonymous envelope stuffed with photos and receipts. One rainy afternoon, Emma waited in her car near Leela's upscale apartment. She watched as Mason stormed out of the building, suitcase in hand, shouting into his phone. Leela ran after him barefoot. Mascara streaked across her cheeks. Emma watched calmly, her fingers drumming on the steering wheel. She felt no pity for the other woman, only a cold satisfaction. By the time Daniel came home that night, Leela's perfect lie had crumbled. She had called him 16 times. Emma made sure he didn't answer a single one. She hid his phone in the oven, a petty touch, but it made her laugh. A house of secrets. Inside their own house, Daniel's fear had turned into paranoia. He checked the loss twice before bed. He changed passwords on his devices, not knowing Emma already had everything backed up. He even started recording phone calls, which Emma discovered within a day and used to feed him false trails. One evening, she found him standing in his office, staring at the camera she'd planted on his bookshelf. "You think you're so clever," he spat. His eyes were bloodshot, his once perfect hair unkempt. Emma stepped into the room, her silk robe brushing against the floor. "Don't touch it." He turned to her, shaking. "What do you want from me, Emma? Money? A divorce?" She laughed softly, stepping closer until they were nose to nose. "I don't want your money, Daniel. I don't want your freedom. I want your fear." She brushed his cheek tenderly. He flinched. "You don't get to walk away clean." "Not yet." Broken alliances. Daniel's career began to buckle under Emma's silent sabotage. The presentation fiasco was only the beginning. A month after the party, an anonymous tip courtesy of Emma landed on the desk of his biggest client, a file of evidence showing Daniel had cut corners and pocketed kickbacks on past projects. Overnight, his firm faced an internal audit. Rumors spread like wildfire, and old friends turned suspiciously cold. He begged Emma to call it off. "I'll make it stop," she said sweetly one night, sitting cross-legged on their marital bed. "But only if you give me what I want." "Anything," Daniel croaked, desperate. "Sign the house over to me, and the beach house in Maui, and the cabin in Vermont." Daniel's face fell. "You're not serious." She tilted her head. "I'm absolutely serious. Or shall I make another phone call?" Daniel signed the paperwork the next day. She watched him do it, savoring the way his hands trembled as he pressed pen to paper. A new secret. But Emma didn't stop at destroying Daniel's career and his side romance. She wanted him truly alone and truly terrified. So she planted a seed. One night, she left her laptop open on the kitchen counter, an email draft half-written, addressed to a lawyer with subject line, "Conservatorship options." She made sure Daniel found it when he came downstairs for a midnight glass of water. The next morning, he confronted her, wild-eyed. "Are you trying to have me declared insane?" he shouted. Emma stirred sugar into her tea. "Who would believe you're sane? You talk to yourself in your office. You scream at nothing. The neighbors hear you." His mouth moved, but no words came out. Emma took a calm sip of her tea. "If you push me, I'll push back harder. Don't forget that." One ally lost. Marissa started to worry. One afternoon, she cornered Emma at a cafe. You need to stop, Marissa whispered fiercely. This is going too far. You've got him under your thumb. Leave him, take the money, and run. Emma stirred her iced latte absently. It's not enough. Marissa slammed her hand on the table, drawing stares. You're scaring me. This isn't you. Emma met her friend's eyes, her own cold and distant. Maybe it was never me. Maybe I was always just waiting for an excuse. Marissa pulled away, shaking her head. I can't help you anymore, Emma watched her oldest friend walk away, feeling the first twinge of something that almost resembled loneliness, but it passed quickly. She didn't need allies. She needed this control, this revenge. The breaking point. Daniel reached his breaking point on a Thursday. Emma came home to find him sitting in the dark dining room, surrounded by half-finished glasses of whiskey. He didn't look up when she walked in. Tell me what you want, Emma. Really? He rasped. She stood behind him, her fingers brushing the back of his neck. He flinched at her touch now, every time. I want you to feel what I felt. Betrayed. Powerless. Small. She walked around the table and crouched so their eyes were level. I want you to know that every day you lie awake wondering what comes next. I'm the one deciding. Daniel's eyes brimmed with tears. You've ruined me. Emma tilted her head, studying him like an insect under glass. Not yet. She kissed his forehead, the same way he used to kiss hers when she was naive enough to believe his lies. A hint of what's to come. In the dead of night, Emma lay in their marital bed alone, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain tapping against the window, just like the night she'd first learned the truth. She felt no regret, no guilt. Only a cold fire that burned hotter with every day Daniel stayed trapped in her web. She was not done yet. Not until he was a ghost of the man who once destroyed her. And maybe, just maybe, when she was finished, she'd finally be free. The birthday dinner. Daniel's birthday was once Emma's favorite day of the year. She'd spend weeks planning the perfect dinner, picking out gifts he never really appreciated, baking the cake herself because he loved homemade things. This year, she planned the dinner too, but for very different reasons. She invited his parents, Richard and Eleanor Pierce, dignified, silver-haired, and blissfully unaware of what their golden boy had become. She also invited his sister, Natalie, who adored Daniel so much she once called Emma the luckiest woman alive. On the night of the dinner, the dining room gleamed with polished silverware and fresh flowers. Emma wore the same red dress Daniel once bought her for their 5th anniversary, back when he still pretended to love her. Daniel sat at the head of the table, stiff as a corpse in his new suit, the only one he had left after Emma lost the others. He flinched every time Emma refilled his wine glass. Between bites of roast beef and polite conversation, Emma sprinkled poison in the form of casual truths. Oh, Daniel's been so busy these days, she said sweetly, smiling at Eleanor. All those late nights with Leela must be exhausting. The room fell silent. Natalie's fork clinked on her plate. Richard cleared his throat. Leela? Eleanor asked, frowning. Daniel's jaw worked furiously, but Emma continued. Oh, you didn't know. She's lovely. Well, she was lovely until her husband found out. She sipped her wine. Her eyes locked on Daniel's pale face. Isn't that right, darling? Daniel tried to stand, but Richard barked, Sit down. Emma watched the same bleed into Daniel's skin as his father's disappointment cut deeper than any knife. For once, she almost pitied him, but only almost. The family fallout. After the dinner, Daniel's parents left without a word to their son. Natalie lingered in the hallway. Her mascara smudged from silent tears. She grabbed Emma's arm. Why, Emma? Why humiliate him like this? Emma looked at her, a flicker of the old hurt surfacing for just a moment. Because he deserved it. Because you all saw him as perfect, and I want you to see him for what he is. Natalie pulled away, shaking her head. "You're not the woman I knew." Emma's laugh was low and cold. "Maybe I never was." Natalie left, slamming the door behind her. Upstairs, Daniel locked himself in the bathroom. Emma heard him retching for hours. She went to bed smiling, digging deeper. Emma's investigator found something new, something not even Daniel knew she could know. Years ago, at the start of Daniel's career, he'd covered up a construction accident at one of his sites. A collapsed scaffolding, hush money to silence a young worker's family. It never made the papers, but the family's lawyer had kept records. Emma tracked them down. She sat in a cheap diner across from a weary, middle-aged woman named Clara Ruiz, the mother of the man who died under Daniel's watch. Emma listened as Clara spoke of broken promises and an envelope of cash that bought her silence, but not her forgiveness. Emma slid an envelope across the table, copies of Daniel's emails from that time, proof of a cover-up that, if exposed now, would finish him for good. "Why are you doing this?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. Emma sipped her coffee. "Because monsters shouldn't get to sleep peacefully." The cracks widen. Emma's days became a blur of orchestrated chaos. Anonymous tips to reporters. Leaks to investors. Mysterious rumors that Daniel had mental health issues. Whispers that maybe he needed help. The stories spread like a virus, unstoppable and invisible. Daniel grew more paranoid by the day. He woke her up at 3 in the morning, screaming about shadows in the yard. He snapped at the housekeeper, smashed his phone, accused Emma of bugging his car, which she had, of course. He started locking his door at night. Emma didn't mind. She had the master key. Glimpse of the old Emma. Emma's days became a blur of orchestrated chaos. Anonymous tips to reporters. Leaks to investors. Mysterious rumors that Daniel had mental health issues, whispers that maybe he needed help. The stories spread like a virus, unstoppable and invisible. Daniel grew more paranoid by the day. He woke her up at 3 in the morning, screaming about shadows in the yard. He snapped at the housekeeper, smashed his phone, accused Emma of bugging his car, which she had, of course. He started locking his door at night. Emma didn't mind. She had the master key. A glimpse of the old Emma. One rainy afternoon, Emma stood in the kitchen, staring out at the garden she'd once spent hours tending. She wondered if she'd gone too far. Marissa's last words echoed in her head. "You're scaring me." Was this who she wanted to be? A woman who built her strength on another's ruin. But the thought passed as quickly as it came. She looked at the empty swing set in the backyard, the one Daniel promised they'd use for kids they never had because he'd always said, "Not yet, maybe later, the timing isn't right." Emma touched her flat belly, felt the ghost of what could have been, and her resolve hardened all over again. The final leverage. The accident file was Emma's ace, and Daniel knew nothing about it. She decided to show her hand. One evening, she called him into the living room. He came reluctantly, his face pale and drawn, his once proud shoulders hunched. She dropped the file on the coffee table. "Open it." Daniel flipped through the pages, police reports, payoff records, hush letters, all with his signature. His eyes went wide with horror. "Where did you get this?" Emma leaned back on the sofa, legs crossed, the picture of calm. "Does it matter?" He buried his face in his hands. "You'll ruin me." Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. "Not if you play by my rules." A new prison. With the accident file, Emma finally chained him where she wanted, not just in fear, but in obedience. She made him transfer more assets. She made him sign a confession, sealed in a safe, to be opened if anything ever happened to her. And every morning, they still posed for the world. They still kissed at the door. They still looked perfect, the Pierce family brand unbroken on the outside. But inside, Daniel was a hollow man, and Emma, once the broken wife, was the warden of a prison she'd built from every lie he'd ever told her. A storm on the horizon. Late one night, Emma sat in her study, the file spread before her. She wondered how long she'd keep this up, how long she'd keep him breathing under the weight of his own secrets. A knock at the door startled her. Daniel stood there, gaunt and shaking. "What do you want, Daniel?" she asked coolly. He sank to his knees at her feet. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." Emma looked at the man who once made her whole, and then broke her piece by piece. She felt nothing. She reached out, touched his hair like she was petting a dying animal. "Not yet, Daniel," she murmured. "You're not done paying." Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. Inside, Emma closed the file and turned out the light. She wasn't finished, not yet. But soon. Very soon. 3 months into Emma's quiet reign, Daniel did something she hadn't anticipated. He hired a lawyer behind her back. He thought he was being clever, whispering phone calls in the shower, passing scribbled notes to his old friend and attorney, Tom Whitaker. But Emma's reach ran deeper than he knew. One rainy afternoon, Tom sat across from Daniel in a discreet coffee shop, listening to him mumble through a plan. "I can prove she's manipulating me," Daniel said, his voice hoarse. "She's unstable. She's blackmailing me, Tom. There's got to be something we can do." Tom nodded sympathetically, and an hour later, he forwarded every detail of their conversation to Emma. That night, when Daniel came home, Emma was waiting by the fireplace. The soft glow lit up her face, calm, beautiful, and terrifying. "Tom says hi," she said sweetly. Daniel froze in the doorway, the color draining from his face. Emma stepped closer, slipped a folded paper into his pocket. "Try it again. I dare you." She kissed him on the cheek before she walked away, leaving him standing there like a ghost in his own home. The anonymous letter. Emma believed she'd closed every door Daniel might try to run through. But she hadn't counted on someone else opening one she didn't even know existed. It came in the mail, a single plain envelope, no return address, tucked neatly between credit card bills. Inside, a blurry photo. Daniel and Leela, not kissing this time, but sitting in a doctor's office waiting room. Leela's hand rested on her stomach. The date stamp was almost a year old. On the back, in smudged pen, "Ask him what he never told you." For the first time in months, Emma's hands trembled. The confrontation. That night, she waited for Daniel in the kitchen. The house was dark except for the dim pendant light above the island. She held the photo between her fingers like a blade. When Daniel stepped inside, exhausted and half-drunk, he paused when he saw her. "Where did you get that?" he whispered when he saw the photo. Emma's voice was calm, but her eyes glittered dangerously. "Is it true?" Daniel looked away, his shoulders sagging. He reached for the counter to steady himself. "Leela. She got pregnant," he rasped. "It wasn't supposed to happen. She said she'd take care of it. But she didn't." Emma felt the room tilt under her feet. "Where is the child?" She moved away. "She said she'd raise it alone if I kept sending money." "I swear, Emma, I didn't want this." She slapped him. Hard. The sound cracked through the silence like a gunshot. "You took everything from me, and you gave her the one thing you always said I couldn't have." Daniel sank to the floor, covering his face. "I'm sorry," he sobbed. "I'm so sorry." Emma stared at the man she'd ruined and felt something break open inside her, raw and savage. Marissa returns. When Emma needed help the first time, she'd called Marissa. Now, she called her again. She found Marissa outside her floral studio, watering plants. Her friend froze when she saw Emma standing there in the rain. "You shouldn't be here," Marissa said quietly. "I need you," Emma whispered. Marissa studied her for a long moment, then nodded. They went inside, and Emma told her everything: the child, the secret payments, the photo. Marissa listened in stunned silence. Emma, you can't fight this forever. This is destroying you. Emma's voice was a hollow whisper. He doesn't get to have a family somewhere else while I'm stuck in this lie. Marissa shook her head. And what about the child? Are you going to punish an innocent baby for his sins? Emma's eyes were wet, but her mouth stayed firm. No, but I'm not done with him yet. The mistress reappears. Emma found Leela. It wasn't hard. Her investigator owed her too many favors. She waited outside a small preschool in the suburbs, watching as Leela walked out with a little girl holding her hand, blonde curls, Daniel's eyes. Emma's heart twisted painfully. That could have been her child. Leela froze when she saw Emma leaning against the hood of her car. You shouldn't be here, Leela hissed when she approached. Emma's smile was razor thin. Relax, I'm not here to hurt you or her. She glanced at the child, who was blissfully unaware of the storm swirling around her tiny head. I just want you to know, Emma said, her voice icy, that I know where you are now. And if you ever come near my husband again, if you ever take another scent, I'll make your life a nightmare you can't wake up from. Leela's face paled. She clutched her daughter tighter. Emma, please. Raise her far away from him. Far away from me. That's your only warning. She turned and walked away, never looking back. The breaking point. Emma went home and stood in the nursery that never was, the room she'd painted pale yellow years ago, where the rocking chair still gathered dust in the corner. She thought about the baby that should have been hers. The life she'd never get back. She felt the old rage bubbling up, but this time it tasted different. Bitter. Poisonous. She had spent so long burning Daniel's life to the ground that she hadn't noticed her own ashes piling up around her feet. She wasn't sure how much more she had left to burn. The last card. Late that night, Emma packed a small bag. She didn't wake Daniel, passed out on the couch. She left the accident file in the safe, the passwords in Marissa's hands. She stood by the front door for a long moment, her fingers brushing the wedding photo on the hall table, the same perfect smiles, the same perfect lie. Then she turned and left, stepping into the night, unsure if she was escaping him or herself. When Daniel woke up the next morning, Emma was gone. No note. No text. No half-hearted threat. The house felt cavernous without her presence, too quiet, too cold. He wandered from room to room in yesterday's clothes, calling her name even though he knew she wouldn't answer. In the bedroom, her closet was half empty. The scent of her perfume still clung to the sheets. For a moment, Daniel almost felt relief. Maybe it was finally over. Maybe she'd given up the game and left him with what scraps he had left. But then he remembered the files. The recordings. The accident. The child he'd hidden. He realized she hadn't run away, she'd run ahead. He sat on the edge of their bed and buried his head in his hands. Emma's absence was not freedom. It was a final warning. The call. Marissa found Emma at a small coastal inn 3 hours away, a place they'd gone once, years ago, when Daniel had surprised Emma with a weekend getaway she'd thought meant something. Emma sat on the porch wrapped in an old blanket, staring at the sea. She looked smaller than Marissa remembered, smaller and older. You can't stay here forever, Marissa said as she sank into the chair beside her. Emma didn't look away from the waves. I know. Marissa reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope, the accident files back up. I still have this. I won't use it unless you say so. Emma laughed softly, her voice raw. What am I now, Marissa? What have I turned into? Marissa touched her hand gently. You're a woman who refused to stay broken. Maybe you went too far. Maybe you didn't go far enough. But you survived him. Emma closed her eyes against the tears. Daniel's desperation. Back home, Daniel paced the house like a caged animal. He tried to reach Marissa. No answer. He tried to reach Emma's family. They hadn't spoken to her in years. He knew what he'd done to her, every lie, every betrayal, every late night in another woman's arms. He saw the ghost of the man he'd been in the reflection of Emma's rage. For the first time, he wondered what would have happened if he'd chosen her. Really chosen her. If he'd given her the child she'd begged for, the loyalty she deserved, the truth she'd built her life around. At 3 a.m., drunk and broken, he sat on the nursery floor, the door Emma always kept shut. He curled up beside the empty crib and wept until there was nothing left inside him but the echo of his own guilt. A choice. On the coast, Emma stared at the envelope in her hands. It was her weapon, her freedom. If she released it, Daniel would lose everything. His career, his reputation, maybe even his freedom. She thought of the other woman's child, her husband's blood. The only innocent thing in a war Emma had waged like a queen with nothing left to lose. Marissa watched her carefully. "What will you do?" Emma whispered. "I don't know." For the first time in a year, she truly didn't. The final meeting. A week later, Emma went back. Not for him, for herself. She found Daniel in the kitchen, half-starved, half-drunk, the house a wreck of unpaid bills and unopened letters. He looked up when she stepped in, eyes wide, like he'd seen a ghost. "You're back," he breathed. Emma stood by the island where she'd once planned her revenge. She dropped the envelope on the marble. "It's over, Daniel," she said. "I'm done." He flinched like she'd struck him. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you can keep your lies. Keep your secrets. I won't waste another second on you." Her voice was flat. No venom, no fire, just cold release. Daniel stepped closer, reaching for her like he might beg for one last piece of the woman he'd destroyed. "Emma, please." She stepped back. "You killed us long before I did." She looked at him, really looked, and saw the small, crumbling man beneath the arrogance, the cowardice, the mask. For the first time, she felt nothing but pity. Free. Emma left the house at dawn, the envelope still unopened on the table behind her. She didn't care anymore if he burned with his secrets. He could drown in his shame or rebuild whatever lie he needed to live. It was no longer hers to carry. In her car, she dialed Marissa. "Where are you going?" Marissa asked, her voice tight with hope. Emma smiled, watching the sun rise over the road ahead. "Anywhere that isn't here." Epilogue. Ashes. Months later, Daniel's scandal leaked anyway. Someone else found the accident file, or maybe it was just karma catching up. His company crumbled. His name became a whisper no one wanted to touch. Leela and her child disappeared into another life, far from the wreckage of Daniel Pierce. And Emma Pierce became someone else entirely. She traveled for a while. She learned how to sleep without nightmares, how to breathe without rage. She still had scars. Some things never heal completely, but she was free. And that, in the end, was the only revenge that really mattered. The end.